Hello everyone, this is Balabud and I'm joined again by Aramango.
What's up?
So last episode we talked about getting the prototype built, and this time I thought we'd look more at making the assets to flesh it out, making it more of a real game.
So the part where most people normally stumble.
Yeah, everyone's got a good idea, but then, actually grinding that idea out for way too long is always the hard part, right?
Absolutely. I think expanding on it is going to be one of the biggest problems for most people. And joining the dots together to get from your original starting point to some kind of end is absolutely key, really. And we were talking about this on a personal level the other day, that a lot of people don't ever finish a project.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot with the game devs I've spoke to. A lot of people have the skills and they start it, but very few of them actually finish a project.
Yeah, seeing it through to the end.
And it's understandable, so it's a lot of work.
Oh, hell yeah, man. I mean, I know from personal experience that you've been working on this for a long time, and you refused a lot of gaming sessions at certain stages when you were deep into the grind on making this game, because you just wanted to focus on what you were doing. And it takes a lot of dedication to your cause to get through it. I think we talked about that. We touched on that last time as well, the absolute concentration and desire to finish the game was a huge part of it for yourself.
It is a great excuse to not do stuff as well, though. People are like, oh, come hang out. It's like, oh, I'd love to, but I've really got to grind out a few more these characters,
Got to build all these characters. So what did you start with when you started making the actual game? So you've got your prototype in place, and you now know you've got your basic plot line sorted. You've got all of those Word documents that you showed us last time. Where did you go from there to make it a reality?
Honestly, I bounced around a lot. I find it helps to, if you're working on everything, it helps to jump from one thing to another, because it just keeps it more interesting. If you do 18 characters in a row, you're going to be so sick of them by the time you're done.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. My wife was telling me that she read something about the great novelist Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently he will work on one book for 6 months. And then at the end of that 6 months period, he's super strict with it. No matter where he is with the book, he will throw it aside and he will work on something else for 6 months. And then after that second 6 months, he comes back to the original project and continues with it, so that that one idea doesn't become stale.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, because you're going to be making one whole thing that's made up of smaller parts. And so if you're jumping around them, each part's kind of feeding into the other.
Yeah, and it becomes building blocks, I guess, in a way.
One part will sort of kind of dictate how the other parts will work.
Sort of like playing Tetris. If you focus too much on one corner of your area, then you're never going to build the rest of your blocks. You're never going to get your lines complete if you don't look at the project as a whole.
And side note, this week I was trying to get everyone to play Tetris.
Okay.
And I'm not good at Tetris, but everyone just assumes I'm amazing at it for some reason, and not a single person will play with me.
Oh, poor boy. Which Tetris are you playing?
I was going to play 99, because you can do a private room.
On Switch?
Yep.
I'll play it with you sometime, man.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Okay, first tangent out of the way. Let's sweep that under the carpet and move on.
So I thought today it would be good to focus on actually making assets.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd go through the process of making the characters. And the first thing I did was try to write down kind of a basic personality, what they're all about.
Yeah.
And for this, I would usually just walk up to all my friends and ask them what would you do if you had 1 week left to live? Because that's the theme of the game, by the way, is the world is ending in a week.
Whoa, spoilers, man.
And so I was asking everyone. I think I asked you, but I forgot what your answer was. What would you do if you had a week left to live?
Shit, man, I can't remember what I said at the time, but I probably would. I think, actually, I might have said try and find a way to stop the world from ending in 1 week. But, yeah, now, I think, when you first embarked on this project, I was in a completely different place, and I now have a family, and I think I would probably just want to stay and spend as much time as possible with them, if I couldn't figure out some way of stopping the world from ending in 1 week anyway.
Yeah, well, it just took everyone's ideas, and then, a lot of people had sort of similar ideas. For example, if you say, I want to find a way to stop it, and someone else says, I would run away, and someone else says, I'd build a bunker. I kind of put that all in, avoiding it.
Yeah, denial almost, a head in the sand kind of.
Kind of. It's There's some people who just straight up just say, like, I wouldn't believe it. I've just gone like normal. I wouldn't believe the world was ending.
Which we're seeing right now with the Corona carry on. There's a lot of people that's dating this episode a bit, but there's a lot of people who are burying their head in the sand and refusing to acknowledge that the thing even exists.
I kind of took all of those things, and I think I boiled it down to like something like 9 or 10 different things that people would do.
That's really interesting because it makes the characters in the game, not just basic characters that you've created from your mind, but actually an amalgamation of things, of different reactions from different people and different individuals, and how their worldview goes into it. That's quite cool.
After I had the basic things, I also made a flip version of it. So, like, most of the characters are made in pairs. They're, like, the extreme on either side.
Yes, and are those pairs represented by the same animal?
No, but there's a lot of things linking them.
Okay.
Like, the voice they use, it's like a different instrument for each pair.
Yes. I remember when you were talking about the instruments for the voices.
For example, if one person is all about, like, we need to solve this with science and find a way to stop the end of the world, the opposite will be the person who's like, hey, we just need to like believe in God and have faith.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And so like everyone's kind of got an opposite, apart from the mother character and Brady, who's the sloth.
Yes, good old slow boy.
So that's a good point as well. The animals I chose were based on the characteristics that I wrote.
Okay, so it wasn't the other way around. You didn't look at the animal and think, okay, this is a sheep, so it should be a follower character or whatever. You actually took the characteristics and created the character from that, gave them the animal that most represented what they felt.
Yeah, I wrote it first, and then, as you say, if there's like a character he's very much following the crowd, I'm like, that's a sheep.
Yeah.
So some of the links are very, very dumb. For example, the depressed one, I'm like, that's a horse, they got a long face.
Nay.
And I give them all like terrible pun names. Like the horse is Mary.
Mary. Yeah, I like it. And the one we're looking at right now, the one that I've got on my screen that you've kindly lent as resources is Deirdre.
Yeah, her name changed to Jane Doe.
Oh, okay, that works too.
Both are terrible DR puns.
I love them both though. I mean, I'm a big fan of puns anyway, so I think it works in many ways. Do you want to talk us through what we're looking at on the screen right now? Are you ready to move on to that?
So, depends on the character. Sometimes I would do a rough sketch or getting a palette down.
Yeah. And you're using some kind of drawing tablet when you've done this?
Yeah, like these sketches are incredibly rough, but like sometimes they would just draw shapes just to get like a rough silhouette and then try and turn it into a character.
Yeah, but they look good, man. They're part of the process, aren't they? And an important part of the process for anybody who is designing a character. You don't need to have oodles of detail, but what you've created is the base of something. It's proportionally correct, and it's spot on for the beginning.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like what we were saying last time is if you get something down, it's easier to go in and change it and add to it.
Definitely.
So just do like a rough sketch first, and then you can always change it into something more detailed later on. Some people had a better idea of and went straight to sort of very nice crisp lines. It was almost like a blueprint of how to model it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because you've got to start from something when you're modeling as well. And then you've got your T-pose and your side pose.
And so after I had like the rough sketch or the sort of blueprint ready, I would go and then model it in 3D. But again, kind of roughly, I'd export a picture of the model and draw over it.
Yeah.
Try different colour schemes, try different details, sort of work on it in that way because it's so much quicker to just doodle over something really roughly than to model it in 3D.
And obviously working with your colour palettes and things like that to try and identify the perfect look.
So the main things I was focusing on were the silhouette of the character in 3D.
Yeah.
And then once I was trying out colours, I wanted it to work in grayscale. If you can look at it in grayscale, the values are all still very clear.
Yeah, you talked about that briefly last time.
Also, I try to make it so it's like complementary colours. There's a great website for this called Paleton.
Okay.
And that's great for like showing you complementary colours for whatever you've chosen. It gives you a nice colour palette.
Oh, that's cool. That's a really cool idea. I didn't realise resources like that existed.
Yeah, it's quite handy if you just like give your ideas and see what works together very quickly. Once I had the colours and everything sorted, it was time to actually like make the textures, which was a lot of faffing around with UV mapping.
Yes, again, here we go back to the UV mapping fun.
I kind of went over that last time, so I won't go on it too much now.
Yeah.
I try to use a lot of big block colours or gradients and try to avoid very small details like as much as possible.
That makes sense when you're making so many of them, and you've got yourself on a time limit of sorts to try and make simple yet easily identifiable characters. Definitely.
eventually I'd get the model finished, I'd do a few iterations of this process. Once it was happy, it was time to rig it, which was kind of the same way as I rigged the fox, and time to animate it. The villager I did in the previous episode, that was just the fox, but with 3 extra animations. I kind of did those 3 animations. I tried to put a bit of personality from the character into those animations. And then I also added an intro animation. So when you first go over, they'll be doing kind of a loop. And then when you interact with them, they'll do an animation that leads into their regular sort of 3.
Yeah, and I guess that's they do an animation reacting to your presence in a way, and that's sort of getting that first animation nailed will really help to show the player what kind of character they're dealing with, I guess, in the way that you've designed this game, to create, not just from appearance, but from the way that they move and the way that they react is going to give them an idea of those key personality attributes that you talked about in the beginning there.
I think it just makes it clearer as well that you're interacting with them. Like, it's kind of like, firstly, it makes it seem as if they were doing something instead of just waiting for you to show up.
Yeah.
And they kind of have a life outside of the player.
Yeah, which gives the whole world more life.
Exactly. And then the second thing is, when you first interact with them and start the conversation, it makes it very clear, like, the conversation has started. This person has acknowledged you. And I think that was kind of important.
Yeah.
There was a few things they did to tweak that sort of thing.
And you spent quite a lot of time just putting the finishing touches on something like that to make sure that the player was aware of being in a conversation and that they were somehow progressing the story of the game as well.
Just to make it very, very clear that you're interacting with them, I made it so when you get close, the fox's head kind of looks at the NPC.
Right, so the player character is acknowledging the existence of someone, which again, people do. I mean, you all know yourself. You walk down the street, and I have a problem with it where I'm always look into people's windows and I just can't help myself. My head just turns automatically and looks, and if somebody walks past me, I look at them. Like that's a normal human reaction, which obviously again lends more realism to the player character and the NPCs in the game. It fleshes it out a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, at first I didn't have that, and it was very unclear when you could and couldn't talk to someone. Like often you go to chat and you realize like, oh, I've got to face them more. They're not quite in my invisible hitbox.
I've got to be standing within 2 centimeters or whatever. Yeah,
so it's very handy to just have the character like turn and look at them, and then to turn and look at you. It just makes it feel like a lot more natural. Of like, okay, I'm in range of talking to them.
It's a visual cue.
Yeah, but I don't know if a lot of people will notice it, but it does help a lot.
They probably won't notice it, but they would notice if it wasn't there.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
If it suddenly wasn't there, they'd be very, very aware of it.
And so I think that was like pretty much it for the process of getting a character done. Then once it was in the game, it was time to write temporary dialogue for it.
And I imagine this was a tricky part.
Yeah, because it's branching dialogue, and so you can't just write it out in a Word document.
You can't?
Well, maybe you could, but it'd be such a pain to say like, hey, this links back to like 5 lines ago, and this one jumps forward 7 lines.
Yeah, a bit like a Choose Your Own Adventure book. Turn to page 74.
Man, I love those books so much. I had like a huge collection of them as a kid.
Me too, man. Me too. They were the shit. They were like, it was like sort of a single-player Dungeons and Dragons, wasn't it? Like,
yeah, kind of. But it was brutally hard. It was always like, do you want to go left or right? Oh, I'll try right. You're dead.
You're dead. Do you want to go left or right? Right. Okay, you come across a troll. Do you have the spell of troll strength? No, I don't. I literally just started the fucking book. Where was I going to get the troll strength potion from?
The worst thing is when you get right at the end of one of those books, it's like, do you have the amulet? And it's like, what? I didn't even come across an amulet. It's like, well, you can't finish the game. There was one particular route you had to take right at the beginning, and
just be like, yeah, I've got the fucking amulet. Just tell me what happened at the end of the story, for fuck's sake.
That's how you played them games. You had like a finger in every page, like so
yeah,
you can
exactly.
go back and cheat.
That's why I have 73 bookmarks.
I feel like the guys who made those games actually just wanted you to cheat. Like, there's no way they expected people to beat them regularly.
Especially with kids. There's books that are basically aimed at children and young adults, you know? Like, yeah, they're not going to have the patience to... And also to go back and play the whole thing again, man, it's like... Replayability was quite low on those, I always felt.
Yeah, definitely. There was always one route through, and if you didn't do that, then you're just lost.
Yeah, if you didn't get it exactly right. But is that also the case with the dialogue in your game?
Yes and no. it depends on the character and the day. Sometimes there's like one route through their dialogue, sometimes there's multiple. And also, you're kind of speaking to 5 per day. So it's like you've got 5 chances.
With every single person as well, to get the right conversation choices. So how did you go about developing these branching conversations?
So I kind of focused on drawing like flow charts with all the dialogue.
So that's what I'm looking at here then.
Yeah, I found that was much easier to sort of see how they will link into each other.
Yeah.
And it was all color coded based on like which character's speaking and if it's a dead end or if it leads to the next day. And it was kind of all broken down into each individual conversation with them and just sort of like mapping it out roughly. And then I would take that information and put it into an Excel spreadsheet that had the number of what line it was, who's speaking, if it's the left dialogue box or the right dialogue box for the fox, and what your left click will take you and what your right click will take you to.
Oh wow! Holy shit, man! That is some complex spreadsheeting right there.
Yeah, it was a bit of a pain, and I forget how many lines there were in total, but it was something insane.
And this is just in a small one-man indie-developed narrative-driven game, like.
Well, I kind of just wrote like rough dialogue at first with the plan to have a friend fix it later on. But we'll get to that next episode. Just I'm getting the Kirby GIF ready. Like
it's there.
Yeah.
Another callback. So what happened next?
I kind of like, as I say, I was jumping around a lot instead of working on just the characters, because there's 18 characters to work on, and each one has a lot of steps to them. So I'd like kind of work on one character and then like a prop or some scenery or a building. Yeah. It was a similar process for creating the unique buildings. Like the church, the shop, the post office, things like that.
I remember them. The shop always really, and the diner as well, were always something that really stood out in the world, the environment of your game. They looked really cool, really unique buildings kind of thing. That then, obviously, they were the ones that you could go inside, where you couldn't enter a lot of the other ones. So they were obviously a really big deal. They were going to be like what you would call the cornerstones of your game world.
Yeah, like as you say, like because they are the ones you can enter, that's why I wanted them to look very unique. Mm-hmm. If they look the same as other buildings, people wouldn't realise they can enter them, and so I always try to make them have windows you can see through to the inside.
Yeah, and that's a really important touch as well, to give, again, going back, we're talking a lot about visual cues today, going back to that, seeing something that immediately draws the eye and immediately draws you in to say, oh look, this is somewhere I can go. And the door, you had sliding. Did you have sliding doors on one of them as well?
Yeah, I had like an automatic door on the shop and the diner.
Yeah, which
again was a choice. I made it like a very large hitbox on it, so that if you're just walking past, you'll see it open and sort of have the sound effect.
And it draws you in.
Yeah, because like, you know, if you walk past most doors, they're not going to open. But then that one, you're like, ooh, that opened, I can go inside.
You're a sneaky barbard. That's clever. Very clever.
That's the thing with like making games. You've got to trick people into actually playing them.
Or into playing them the right way. And making them, but also at the same time making them feel like it's a discovery that they've made for themselves.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you just have like a text box that says like, go here. You know, you're get a little mini map. It's just like, go to the diner. It's less interesting than walking past and going like, ooh, I can go in here. I wonder what's in there.
You're luring them in like a breadcrumb trail.
Exactly. Make it sound so sneaky.
It was a bit sneaky, man. And looking at the sign as well, I mean, I would definitely be drawn into that diner. It's got a fantastic name.
Diner.
No, on the picture here that I'm looking at.
You're looking at the concept art.
Yeah, I am looking at the concept art. Yeah.
The name changed for some reason.
Yeah, it did. That didn't make it into the final copy.
This large fella named Richard used to be his diner, but it changed to Honey's diner.
I think when Honey took over, I stopped going because actually, under its previous name, I wanted to be seen there. I wanted to be seen in the window all the time. Like,
every time you saw that name, your mouth was like watering. Like, I want to fill my mouth right now.
Well, I wonder if there's any sausages on today.
So that's an interesting thing. Is when I was stocking the diner and the shelves of the store, like I was thinking, like, what do people buy from stores that aren't meat? And like all I could think about was like meat and like food. And for some reason, I could not think of anything else. I couldn't think of vegetables or like pizza. It's just my mind was instantly just like meat, but I can't.
Not even carrots.
Yeah, I can't have
cucumbers.
Right? Like it seems so obvious now, but at the time I was just like I couldn't focus on anything other than meat. I was just like I can't have that because of all animal people.
But yes, again, some of them, you know, Do you have any? Were there any carnivores in the game? I can't remember now. I think mainly herbivores, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There's a dog. Dogs eat meat. Foxes eat meat.
So there's a cat there. They'll eat a dead body.
That's true. They literally are waiting for their owners to die so they can start eating them.
But anyways.
Yeah.
So
let's list all the animals we know that are carnivores.
just go through all one at a time.
Let's get back on track.
So I wasn't super happy with the characters. Like at first I was just trying to copy Wind Waker style and failing very hard. And I wanted something that was more unique to this game and I wanted to be its own thing. And so I decided to go back and rework the Fox model.
Yes, you do. Yeah, you mentioned that you did that at some point in the last episode, that you would go back and rework it, but...
And so like when it looked like a Funko Pop, which God, Funko Pops are the worst, aren't they?
They're those bobbly head versions of like everyone's favorite characters. Yeah, those suck. I hate those.
It's like they barely represent that character at all.
Nah, they're just like some chibi, cheesy version. You know the Gachapon pods in Shenmue? They were kind of like Funko Pops heads that you would get out of those, you know.
But like at least they look kind of like the character.
Yeah, a little bit more accurate, but they always had that ridiculously exaggerated massive head.
So yeah, anyways, instead of looking like a Funko Pop, I decided to change the style a bit. A lot of people saw it as like, hey, this is a girl, this is a guy. It was so like vague. And so when I was making it like a bit more like an actual character, I kind of had to choose if I wanted it to be a girl or a guy. And I decided like, why not just do both? Like let people choose.
I think that was a smart move.
I had to do two versions of the fox for a guy and a girl, but then also each morning I wanted to kind of make a very clear start and end to each day, instead of just like, hey, the day's ended, the next one's begun, like nothing's changed. And so every morning I put in a scene of them waking up out of bed, and you know, so they're not sleeping in the clothes. I also do two extra versions of the guy and the girl in pajamas.
Pajamas.
Yeah, that was like an extra 4 versions of the fox I did. But I think it turned out a lot better. Like the improvement's so clear.
Yeah, I mean they look a lot more humanized, I feel, than the initial design. Like you say, the sort of lollipop stick body and the massive head, which has its place, definitely. I'm not knocking it. Like its place isn't Funko Pops, obviously, but that kind of design of the smaller body, I did like your original design, but nah, the improvements were massive when you switched over to this more larger body, normal, average-sized head, proper proportions.
Yeah, so I do like a similar thing for one of the other characters, which is the ex-boyfriend / girlfriend of the player character, because you know, like they were kind of meant to represent each other. You know, I said all the characters are made in pairs.
Yeah,
they are the pairs for each other.
Okay, so but then you're pushing a personality on the player character as well, I guess, in that respect.
It's more that I made the other character like a little bit blank.
Okay.
To match, and like they have like very similar animations with like very similar clothing, but like inverted colors.
Yeah,
it's almost like a mirror of the player character in looks wise.
And did you just use the opposing model for that character, or was that a completely separate model? So you know, when you choose the male, is the ex-partner just the fox, the girl fox, or is it a completely different girl fox?
No, it's completely different. It's actually a cat.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And so I had to make 2 versions of them as well. So instead of just slightly changing the style, I had to make 6 whole new models.
Yeah, well, you know, there's nothing like making work for yourself.
Oh yeah, I love doing that apparently. So every other week I was like, hey, I got a great idea, I should add this. And just, I knew I shouldn't, because it was already like going on much longer than it should have done, but I couldn't stop myself.
Yeah, but this is the thing, it's what makes a game special, you know, when you've taken the time and dedicated your own resources to making it better, putting in those little touches and those little things that you knew would make the game better to play and more interesting to play. I think it's quite important to push those in, so fair play.
The big problem now was that all of the villagers looked very different to the new style of the fox and the cat, because before they were based on the original fox's design, so everyone had like a very large head and like small body, and so I had to then go through and tweak all of the villagers to match the new style. And so it was 6 new models plus 16 tweaks to previous models.
Shit, man.
As I say, I love making work for myself.
Yeah, that's a long effort, man.
So yeah, it gets worse. Well, next time we'll talk about the worst part of it. But
okay, there's more. There's more, huh?
That's pretty much the gist of getting most of the assets done. After that was a lot of like tweaking and messing around with like setting them up.
Yeah.
So last time I spoke about having collision meshes.
We do, yeah. We went about the ramp and the steps.
Each of the NPCs, they have two. They have like a box at the bottom of them surrounding their body, so you can't walk through them.
Yeah.
And then there's another box above them, so that the camera can pass through that one, but you can't. And this is because originally you could jump on their heads, and then they would spin to try and look at you.
Oh, okay.
And just gain speed rapidly.
Just keep spinning.
Yeah, just keep accelerating, and then as soon as you jumped off their head, there's so much momentum, you just launch out of the map.
Oh man, that sounds fun though.
It was. Like, I was tempted to keep it as a feature, but it was like so easy to break the game with that.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, so there's now like an invisible box above their head that stops you, but I had to make it so the camera can go through that, but it can't go through their body.
Yeah.
That was a bit of faffing.
But it's an interesting fix, man. It's I think people will be interested in hearing about that. You know how you overcame obstacles that you discovered during the development, man. That's it's one of those things that you never think about there being even a tiny issue in making a game, but it's obviously something that was super important.
Yeah, there's like a lot of little things like that. Like when you're speaking to the NPCs, originally you would click and they would just talk for like their lines, and it kind of felt like you weren't doing anything. It wasn't like a lot of player feedback, and so I just had like add a small animation of the fox nodding when he isn't talking.
Right, so he's like listening along, and again, it's one of those things that you probably don't notice is there, but you would definitely notice if it wasn't.
100%. It felt so much better having that in, but nobody notices it's in there. It's like it's the weirdest thing. I feel like a lot of game development is that.
Completely thankless tasks.
Yeah, just like it has to feel good, but it's so hard to pin down what is making it feel good when you play it.
Adding that extra level of realism.
So another big issue was the proportions on the fox. The two versions of the fox and the two versions of the cat were very slightly different. Like the guy had a wider shoulder span and a longer mouth, and so that led to problems with how I was rigging them. Because, you know, if the guy reaches over to grab something, the girl version of the fox, their hand won't be in the same position because the arm doesn't go out as far.
So you need different animations for each iteration.
A lot of them I used the same animation, but I made like a weird rig where the actual rig for the fox has two mouths and two arms. They look like Goro from Mortal Kombat.
Oh, that's fucking freaky.
Like the girl version is only rigged to one set of arms, and the guy version's rigged to the other set.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the actual rig, it's very, very weird looking. But when you're playing in the game, it just looks like normal.
Yeah, because you don't see that. It's behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, there's a few animations I had to do two versions of, mostly for cutscenes if they're interacting with the scene.
Yeah, like when they turn the alarm clock off or whatever in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. But like most of the gameplay ones, like running around, I just used the same rotation value on the bones for both sets of arms, and it looks fine.
Man, so much to think about.
I think that was the biggest thing with making the assets. It was all the small things you have to think about. Like actually making the models. You're just like, here's a list of what I need, just slowly work through it.
And again, calling back to what we were talking about last time, it's such a huge removal from what your past experience has been in animation, because it's something you would never ever have to think about when you were doing that, because you tweak and move everything as you go anyway.
There was an interesting story actually when I was modelling them. A friend of mine like messaged me. I was like, "Oh, what are you up to?" I said, "Oh, I'm just like I'm busy working on this at the moment." It's like, "Oh, what are you working on?" I was like, "Just some modelling," and they're like, You're modelling. Like I meant like 3D modelling, but thanks.
Well, you know, tall, slim, man. Like, why not?
That's the only criteria.
Pretty much, from what I've seen so far. Like,
are you tall, slim, and man? We got a job for you, kid.
Tall, slim, interesting-looking person required to have clothes put on them.
I think you also need to be like, you know, somewhat attractive.
I think that it is a partial requirement, but I think especially catwalk models, man, they tend to be quite freaky looking in a way.
That is true, actually.
I think it's it looking interesting is more interesting to catwalk shows than being conventionally attractive.
Okay. I need to find my friend that I spoke to like 2 years ago and message him, go like, I could be a model.
Absolutely. Listen to this video, the expert analysis of Eremenko on catwalk modelling.
Also, when I got it all done, you know, I finally had something I could show my friends. You know, I had like a city, I had a bunch of NPCs with like test dialogue. Say, oh, like it's something I can go see. And so I sent it out to my friends. I was like, you know, it's going to be great if I actually finally show them what I've been working on.
All this time, when I've been telling them that I can't game.
Yeah, and like, I think almost all of them messaged me back and was like, is this a furry game?
Oh, really?
Like, are you secretly a furry and we just didn't notice?
They haven't told us. Your darkest
I've
secret.
known you for years and just never noticed before the fursuit.
Well, I don't think that ever crossed my mind. Obviously, I've watched a lot of your animations, and a lot of them do feature animal characters, and I never thought anything of it, to be honest.
I just do it because it's easier, but
And I think if you'd stuck with the original models, that probably wouldn't have been a question.
Yeah,
but
I
because you
think that's
decided to
true.
humanize them more, it does fall into that valley of like, a little bit yiffy, if you like.
Once the game came out, a lot of the furries have been all over it. They love it, and I'm just like, hey, if you guys like it, have fun.
Finding an audience, man. That's great.
Not the audience I intended, but hey, if they enjoy it, who am I to judge?
Absolutely, you weren't looking to exclude the furries, but it's not something that crossed your mind. And I think probably actually, if somebody had created a game that was targeted at that genre, then it might have been less well received within that genre because, they would have made a lot of assumptions on what people with those interests were looking for.
That's probably true, actually.
Instead of creating a believable world with believable characters that people could, like and enjoy interacting with, they might have created something entirely different, that would have been offensive and beastly.
The title of this episode should just be like, how I accidentally created a furry game.
I mean, it doesn't hurt, does it? It might get you those clicks.
That's true. That should be the tag for this episode. It's just furry game. So when I was working on getting the town set up, I decided to set up the day and night system.
Yeah, and it's gradual, isn't it? If I remember rightly, it starts off morning and then moves to afternoon and then gradually gets darker into the evening.
Yeah, and so at first the problem was people would just run and try and speak to as many people as possible.
Yeah, and that was one of the issues I faced when I first played it. I didn't realize time was progressing as I interacted with people. I thought it was progressing as I spent the day running around.
Well, originally it was going to work that way, but I felt like people weren't really talking to people, just skipping through the dialogue to try and get as many people as possible. And so instead I changed it so there's 5 time slots, and each time you talk to someone, no matter how long it takes or how short it takes up one time slot.
And then after you've spoken to 5 people, Morgana says, it's getting late, we should go to bed, right, Joker?
God, I hate that cat.
You must be real tired. What? I've only been up for half an hour.
So yeah, I did that as a way to sort of get around that issue and make it so each playthrough you can only do 5 people maximum. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how long it takes you. You'll always have the possibility of getting 5 people. There are some sneaky ways to get more than 5 people, but it's going to be roughly 5 people.
You have to figure that out for yourselves when you play the game, which is available now on Steam.
And then the idea is, you'll go through, try and get 5 people, maybe get 3 or 4. You might fail a couple. And then you'll play it again and you'll know how to correct the ones that you failed, but then also can try some new ones.
Or you could just try and perfect all of them because you fucked it up so monumentally on the first place.
Exactly.
Like other certain people might have done.
The story's kind of segmented amongst all of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so until you go play it multiple times and speak to everyone and then piece it together, it kind of won't make a lot of sense. Which is terrible game design, because most games, they put all the interesting part at the beginning to get people hooked.
Yeah, right in front of the player's face.
And then once they're hooked, they start hitting with the gameplay loops. For me, I'm like, nah, you got to play the game complete it multiple times and then you'll get the interesting stuff.
Yeah, and then you'll find those gameplay loops that are satisfying.
And it's been strange seeing how people played it, because some people who played it all the way through and 100% of the game, they love it.
Okay.
And then people who pick it up and give it a quick try, I don't get it.
Yeah, you need. It's one of those games I feel that you need to have a certain amount of time to getting into it, to getting into the swing of it, and then once you figured it out, then you can start really playing the game, which is definitely a different way of approaching a game than most people are used to now. Most games now, everything, like you say, it has to be front and center to get people's attention because attention spans are so short now. So it was a brave decision. I'm not necessarily going to say one way or another whether it was the right decision, but I think it was your plan and you stuck to it, and I think that's commendable.
I think the problem is it's so much about freedom and choice that if you got sort of a lot of it handed to you right up front to try and hook you in, and maybe wouldn't have the same aspect to it.
And it gives you a chance to imprint your own personality on each playthrough, I guess.
Yeah, it's it's difficult to say be very rigid for like a huge opening of it, and then all of a sudden like, hey, it's completely open now. Like you can be whatever you want. Although we have spent like an hour setting up you be this one person. The last thing I want to talk about when discussing the assets and creating all them was making the church and all of that kind of religious aspect to the game.
It's a tricky subject. It always is a tricky subject.
So at first it was just like a Christian church, but as you say, it's a tricky subject. I decided let's not play with fire there.
Make it a bit more anonymous, as you might say.
So, the game was about choice, and so you can be very, very rude about it, or you can be very accepting of it. And I feel like a lot of people wouldn't even like the idea that there is a choice to be rude about it or to be accepting of it.
Yes, well,
people have very strong opinions on this.
One way or the other, don't they?
And so originally it was like all sort of crosses and things like that. And I had to go back and change them all to be the Flying Spaghetti Monster, our Lord and Saviour.
Oh, yes, he is a legend.
He boiled for our sins. And so I thought, nobody's going to get angry if you have the ability to join or like sort of mock the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
Because in itself, it's a parody of religion anyway. So actually, religious folk could still get offended, but
that's true. I should have accepted that people will be offended by everything and just not changed it.
You're not offending one particular religion. Instead, you've decided to go out there and offend all of them.
Exactly, right? Then it's fair.
Look how ridiculous it is to worship a flying spaghetti monster.
That's how it works, right? It's okay if you insult everyone.
Yeah, I think so. If everyone's offended evenly, then you're on a nice level plane.
So anyways, to wrap up, I feel like we're stuck very on track this episode for once.
Yeah, we did well, man. It's been nice and succinct.
Yeah, normally it's like 2 hours of us rambling about games, and we kind of mention the one I made.
Apart from the parts where we went way off track, we definitely stuck to the track.
Yeah, we'll cut them parts out though. Normally it's like it's so merged in that I can't remove them.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think we should wrap up with Big Kev's spicy segments.
Let's do it, man. So what's Big Kev got on offer for us today?
You remember last time there was the guy who wanted to be our best friend?
There was, and I miss him already.
Right, and so, it was like we had a record of 2 comments in 1 week. It's like, oh, we're living large now.
I know, man. We thought that was it. The YouTube money was going to start rolling in. We actually were just about to hand in our notice at our day job.
What day jobs? I'm horribly unemployed.
Okay, I was about to hand in my notice at my day job.
And so, we give him a secret phrase to say.
We did.
And I went back to check if he's said that phrase this week, and his account has been deleted.
Oh no!
So, yeah, I think I was right. He was indeed a bot.
May he rest in peace.
No. So we had a brand new record low of -2 comments for this week.
That's
beating our previous usual of 0.
That's pretty sad.
But then a hero came along. Okay.
I love it when heroes come along, man.
Not only did he say the phrase, but then he left like a good solid paragraph.
Yes, I have actually had a cheeky look. I've been checking for comments as well because I'm vain. I like to see if anyone said anything about me. In addition to seeing if anyone said anything about your game, obviously.
And so I thought you could do that on us because you said yourself you would subscribe and give him a shout out if he said the secret phrase.
I did, and I have subsequently subscribed to the channel of Met. I think Mete. He's a musician of sorts. He plays some.
Yeah, he's got some interesting videos on there.
He does, man.
Making like weird horns.
I've had a little peep, and it seems like he's got some skills, and seems like a good guy in all. So, do you want me to read the comment?
Sure.
So he opens up with the secret phrase that allows us to know that he's not a bot. He said, "I love Big Kev's spicy segment."
Who doesn't?
Exactly. Let's be friends. So he's saying let's be friends, and I am accepting. So I say we're all friends now.
Best friend of the channel.
Plus 1 friend for me. That makes 1. Then he goes on. He goes on to have a little conversation about how he's feeling about the show and stuff, So he says, but in all seriousness, I've really enjoyed listening to you two talk about your somewhat convoluted process of making. I will point out here that it almost makes it sound like I had a part in this process, but I didn't. He goes on, I don't even know how long I've been dormantly following your YouTube channel, Balbod's YouTube channel. I probably subscribed 6 years ago when the Animal Crossing animations came out.
That's when everyone subscribed.
Those are spectacular, though.
Everything else I've made, no one is interested.
Except for the Adventures of Mandrew, and the Journey animation as well was one of my favorites.
Yeah, the Journey one did okay. It's weird. Like, I made animations for other people's channels that got literally millions of views, and nobody clicked through from the description to like my
But
channel.
you are tagged in all of those, so that's it's something.
But if you look at the analytics, like nobody clicks through. It'll get like 40 million views and 100 people will click through.
How often do people read the descriptions? So they just go straight to the comments, don't they, to find gems like this?
It was all the Animal Crossing animations.
Yeah,
but then it's weird. It's like, you take 4 hairs off and come back with very different content. Suddenly people aren't interested in seeing anymore.
So weird. But some people are. So as he said, as Mete says, I admit to forgetting your channel's existence, and when I saw the last week trailer, it was an interesting surprise. Even better has been these podcast style talks. Even better. That's big praise for what we're doing right here.
It really is, considering it's like once a week we'll just have a random chat before we play games.
Yeah, and this is something we've done for ages. We've been on Twitch randomly chatting and playing games and random stuff, but no, it's really nice to hear that. That made my day, actually, when I read that. So he says, seeing this side of game making is really cool. Almost everything I've ever seen before has been significantly over my head, with every part of the process needing a lot of pre-existing knowledge, and that makes it intimidating, which is true. Your low-tech approach and grit to stick through the project is very inspiring to me. So that's praise for you, Balbod, right there, man.
That's a fantastic comment as well, mate. Very well written.
Yeah, if you inspire one person, that's enough, man. That is enough. The whole process of being iterative with many layers of trial and error is a refreshing way to hear about making a game. It makes it feel a lot more achievable to me. I admit to not playing the game yet. It's a personality fault of mine. Hearing your reasoning and your decisions is really great. It shows the amount of careful consideration that went into what may seem like a very simple mechanics. And I enjoy that you have the willingness to come up with solutions of your own on how the game should behave and how players should interact with the world. And that's what we've been talking about in this episode alone. You made some bold decisions that most developers, well, outside of the indie sphere, probably wouldn't do. And I think that's why indie games have increased in popularity so much in recent years, because people want new ideas, they want new content, they want something different to the AAA. Here's a man with brown hair shooting something. It's there's so many of those games. The AAA genre is awash with samey games, and more people every day are turning to the indie developers to give them something fresh, something interesting.
Yeah, I remember like back in the PlayStation 1 days, games were like so varied because nobody knew what worked.
Yeah, exactly.
And then as time went on, it became very clear, like, this is what works. This is a sellable game. Make this.
We keep making FIFA, we keep making COD, we keep making Battlefield, and those games are going to sell. But now it's almost like the new renaissance of video games, with the accessibility and the ability for someone like you to just go in there, make a game, launch it on Steam, and be like, there you go, this is something I wanted to make. I don't have marketing executives breathing down my neck saying that we need this much profit by this quarter, or we're never making your game again. You just went out there and tried to make something that was a labour of love, and Mete clearly understands that and respects it, and we really appreciate you commenting, man. I do, and I'm pretty sure Balbo does as well.
I do. Just to quickly add on to what you're saying about it, everything being usually over your head, I think it's a lot simpler than people expect it to be, but it looks very intimidating before you start.
Yeah, elements of it are.
But I do think if anyone is interested, just try it. It's surprisingly simple. Unless
you're that guy who was on that course.
Yeah, if you're him, just give up on everything, really.
Just give up. Yeah, stop trying to make games, man. Just.
To be fair, I don't think he actually tried.
He doesn't have the passion for it, man. Not like you.
So anyways, as nice as that comment is, I think it's time to go on to the tag game and then wrap up.
Yeah, let's tag it up, man. What are we going to do this week?
Last episode,
it's your call now, right?
It had the double tags. I think we should keep giving you double tags, because I noticed that I'm going to have an extra episode to you if we're doing 5 in total.
Okay, yeah,
and
that makes sense.
This time I've got to choose. As tempting as it is to have furry, I think I may go for cute models.
Okay, I think that's a smart
We discussed all them cute models I made today, right?
Yeah, and we just discussed your cute modelling career as well.
Exactly. So cute model can be the hot tag for this one. It's going to get us 1 million views this time, I swear down.
At least.
Last time didn't work. Time before didn't work, but this is the one.
I'm going to go double figures for my view estimations. At least 10.
I mean, it's like that's actually what we're kind of on track for. Each episode's gotten less than the previous one, and I think last episode was like 30 views or something shocking.
Yeah. It's not. We haven't optimized it for YouTube yet. When we get the time slots down to 15 minutes, then that's when the views will start going up, man.
Also, like, tags don't actually take place. Like, they don't take effect until you've got like 100 views or something.
Oh, really?
So I'm just doing this because I think it's funny, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun way to wrap up the show instead of, just being like, okay, bye.
Laters.
Speaking of which, okay, bye.
Laters.